You have to scout and create a combine like experience to see them work instead of just have them tell you how they work. You have to be able to find what is it about this candidate outside of the obvious that's going to give me confidence that they're going to not just be average, but elite in my selling ecosystem.
Thank y'all so much for joining the Sales Gravy podcast. I'm Jeb Blount Jr. I'm filling in for Jeb Blount. And today we've got an amazing guest, Nigel Green. I'm happy to have him back on the show because we've had some amazing conversations over the years. And this is a great opportunity for leaders in the audience to learn from somebody who really has a lot of experience in winning and failing and seeing what is real on the ground for managers when it comes to hiring salespeople. But before we get into that conversation, I want you to check out Sales Gravy University. Sales Gravy University is the most powerful sales training platform on the market, and it allows you to deploy sales training at scale, on demand and live training. In fact, Nigel Green himself has a hiring course directly on Sales Gravy University. And if you haven't taken any courses on Sales Gravy University, the best way to do that is go to learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com and use the code FREECOURSE so that you can take one of our courses for free right now. That's learn.salesgravy.com. Nigel, man, I am so happy to see you. I'm so happy to have you back on the podcast. I can't wait for this conversation because there are a lot of people in the audience that hiring salespeople is the biggest challenge that they have in their business. There's a lot of VPs of sales, a lot of CEOs who are looking at their sales organization and trying to figure out how to maximize and optimize what the talent is that is in the pool, in their offices or in the field today. And you have a new book coming out called Hiring Elite Salespeople. Hiring Elite Salespeople. We've picked the blue and gold cover finally, and there's a subtitle there. And I want you to kind of give us some background as to why you wrote this book and why it is the only skill that sales leaders should have is hiring elite salespeople.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm a huge believer in what you guys are doing at Sales Gravy. I think that one of the things I tell everyone in the sales organization is that it is your job to get trained. It's my job to make sure that you have the resources available. And so that doesn't mean that all the training has to come from me. And I love that things like Sales Gravy exist because I can say, look, I will pay for it. You go take whatever course you want. And it's been a great resource for me and some of my clients over the years. The subtitle, as you alluded to, the only sales leadership skill that matters, is intentionally provocative. And the reason that I believe it to be true and a little bit contrarian, I wrote Revenue Harvest, and it is a book for sales leaders. And it lays out 7 principles that if you get them right, you will break the statistical problem that we see in sales leadership, which is that the average tenure of a sales leader is only 18 months or less. And I think a lot of that, the reason why that statistic is so abysmal is because sales leaders don't understand those 7 principles. But, and this is the big but, I think none of that matters if you don't understand how to hire elite salespeople. And I use the word elite because, sure, you can do what most human resource departments do to fill a job. You can post it. You can let people apply to the job. You can use LinkedIn. You can use Indeed. You can repurpose people from marketing or customer success that already work in your company, but they're not elite. And they may not become elite fast enough to save your job as the sales leader. And so that's why I'm writing this book. And I'm doing something a little bit different is I'm actually writing it and publishing it chapter by chapter. So if you want to go read it as I write it, you can go to my website right now and read chapter by chapter. I've got 3 chapters out at the time of this recording. And it's been really fun to just incorporate the tension and the feedback from readers as I have something to say about how you hire elite salespeople.
I love that this is the approach because as someone who's hired before and you go through the interview process and in a lot of cases sales managers are hiring because of a need, so there is some excitement when you get somebody who's into the process and they sound good, they look good, they they smell good, but there's a difference between an elite salesperson and a salesperson, even if you've repurposed people. So what is the difference that you find when you're interviewing people for sales that makes them elite versus anything else? Like, what are some of your criteria that you coach people on that they should be paying attention to?
Well, let's start with, and I'm going to rely on my sports background. I played football in college. I love football. So I use the sport of American football a lot in this book. Uh, Most hiring managers, human resource individuals, and sales managers hire and optimize the interview and screening around finding obvious talents. Okay. And so that would be things like grit, hard work, prospecting every day, make it more calls, asking really good questions. And they say, well, this person can do all that. And I go, well, yeah, that would be like Andy Reid, only the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, only caring about players that were 6'5", 225, strong, fast. Well, obviously everybody in the NFL is 6'5", 220 plus, can bench press the world and run a 4.4. But why is it that some quarterbacks end up being Johnny Manziel and some end up being Patrick Mahomes?
Right.
It's because there are non-obvious things about elite players that we have to find during the interview process. That's why you see scouting, which, by the way, scouting is not a tryout, which is what most hiring managers do. They post it and say, anybody can apply for this job, and we'll weed through all the applicants, and then we'll find the best one. And that's what a tryout is. Everybody shows up, and we'll pick the best players. Well, what if the best player didn't show up? So that's why scouting is different. Scouting is invite only. And so I want sales leaders to understand this fundamental truth about elite salespeople. They do not apply to your job. They don't. And they say, well, why not? Well, buddy, they're busy being successful at their current job. They're not looking for your job. All the candidates that are applying to your job, even the ones that are employed, are not elite. There are exceptions. Of course, everybody's listening to this and they're going to say, oh, well, what about there are going to be exceptions? There are going to be exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, they're busy smashing their quota in their current job, and their heads down, they're doing the work, and they don't apply. So you have to go recruit them. And then when you go recruit them, it won't be enough. Getting back to the obvious versus non-obvious, you have to scout and create a combine-like experience to see them work instead of just have them tell you how they work. You have to be able to find, what is it about this candidate outside of the obvious that's going to give me confidence that they're going to not just be average, but elite in my selling ecosystem.
So when you're talking about the scouting process, what it sounds like to me as someone who prospects for new business is that it sounds like it's prospecting for new hires. How do you coach a leadership in the process of prospecting for their new talent rather than going through the tryout process, which is anybody who comes to the door who raises their hand may be a good candidate, but you have to do all the work there. How do you find the people that you're going to go scout?
You find them by, one, recognizing that asking them if they want a job is not going to be that's not like, if we're going to use prospecting language, like, do you want to buy my stuff? Is probably not a good prospecting approach. Like, I don't even know that I need your stuff. So they're not even looking for a job. So you train the sales leader to find individuals in the course of their job, whether that be like if you're out riding along with a rep and you happen to see another rep that sells a different solution to your customer, making a note of that. Asking your customers, hey, outside of my reps that are phenomenal and represent our product really well to you, who are some of the best reps that you love having in your office, regardless of what they sell? Who are they? So you ask your customers who they think is a good salesperson, because if If they're good at selling to something else to your customer, they're probably really good at selling your stuff to customers too. So that's one thing you do. You ask your really good reps who they hang out with. And let me tell you the truth, really good reps, and this goes back to the non-obvious, they hang out with other really smart sales reps that don't work at your company because they want to learn from them. They want to train, they want to bounce off. They're in networking groups, they're in these masterminds, they know other good salespeople. And then the last thing is use your LinkedIn, use the sales navigator function, use the recruiting tool to look at your really good reps and say, who else looks like this in the LinkedIn profile? And then go ask them if you can share notes or if you can learn from them versus would you want an interview for this job?
I love that approach. I think it's personable. It gets you across the line with better, deeper conversations, and not the, hey, do you want a job? Or if you're ever looking for a job, let me know. Kind of just that block and tackle conversation that never really goes anywhere. You had a line in your previous book that I've always clung on to, which is that good salespeople are not looking for a job; they already got one. That's the exact principle that you're speaking to here. As far as the mistakes, so I imagine you're working with companies or with groups that may need an injection of good sales talent now, not 7 months from now, not 20 months from now. What are some of the biggest mistakes that hiring managers make when they have that need, or they have the law of need, so that the more you want something, the less likely you are to get it, and they kind of just hire somebody in because it felt good? What are some of the mistakes that they make that you should be aware of to avoid when you're in that place?
It's a great question, and I'm writing in this in one of the chapters. It's called the 4 rules of hiring elite salespeople. We just talked about the first one, that they don't apply to your job. Okay, so I don't like these rules. You're not going to like them either, but they're rules. Okay, break them at your own peril. So they don't work at your company. They're not going to apply to your job. That's rule number 1. The second rule is that they are the show. George Strait does not go look for another band. Like George Strait is George Strait. Taylor Swift is Taylor Swift. Like she is the show. Like, well, what does that got to do with hiring elite salespeople? The whole purpose of any business is to create a customer. So if you don't treat your sales team, which is creating customers, like Taylor Swift, like George Strait, then they're not going to come there. And this is how this manifests. When you say the sales team are prima donnas, or you make it really hard for them to be successful because you don't fulfill the order, or you make it really hard for them to update the CRM because you don't have all this technology that allows the data that you want from them to auto magically show up as they do their job. Or this is the third rule. They deserve more money than you. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. An elite salesperson that is 100, 115% to plan in their current job, that's not interested in interviewing, they're not going to take your compensation package as it stands now on the promise that one day, if they're successful, they'll get back to where they are now. So you have to be flexible in designing the compensation plan for these elite people. You got to absorb the risk. If they're making 250, and you say, well, the salary is 100, and you got a chance to earn another $150,000 in commission, why would I do that? I'm already going to make 250 in this job. So you have to be able to go at risk and pay them and re-engineer your compensation plan. And sometimes for elite salespeople, it's more than the sales manager makes. It's more than the head of finance makes. It's more than your marketing director makes. And in some instances, Jed, I've had sales reps that made more cash in a year than the CEO made. Mm. And if you can't get around that, you're not going to hire elite salespeople.
Do elite salespeople make it easy to deliver when it's hard? They are out there making it rain, so that you can tell that there's an elite salesperson because there's kinks in the process. They're finding them and they're getting frustrated with it, but they're making it worth your time to go fix it. Is that a good good rule of thumb to figure out whether or not someone's elite?
It is. And it's how they do it. Okay, so like sales reps, we have this bad rap sometimes of leaving a wake of destruction behind us. Like they come in and they just drop an order, don't ask any, they just create chaos. Elite salespeople don't do that. They partner with operations, they partner with finance, they lead the rest of the company to say, this is what our customers want. If you want more customers, we probably should do this.
I like this. Okay, so what is your third rule? So you mentioned 4 rules. You get the first rule, which is that they're not coming to you. The second rule is that they are the show. So you gotta play the game a little bit with the show, like Taylor Swift with George Strait, because they're not changing bands just to change bands. That's not what they do. What is your third rule for hiring?
Well, the third rule is they will not accept your comp plan.
Period.
Okay, so that's the third. Like they don't like, so HR and finance set a comp plan that says we will budget to pay this much salary and then this much in commissions, bonuses, and incentives to get to this on target earning. Well, that works for someone that's applying for a job. They don't have any leverage. Elite salespeople aren't looking for the job. You have to recruit them. And so you have to be flexible on the compensation plan. That's the third rule, is they don't want your comp plan.
Victor Antonio has a great line. He says, what a job is. It's just JOB, just over broke. So people who are applying for jobs are not going to work. They're not going to work at their profession to say, look, I earn this much. I'm taking your comp plan, and this is what they're coming like a contract, like an NFL player who knows their worth coming to the table. What are some tips and maybe just some tactics for leaders who are willing to play the game, but they're going to have to sell this internally? What are some things that you've seen be successful for those leaders who are going to be flexible?
What they have to be able to do is demonstrate to the rest of the company that the sales leader, are ultimately responsible for hitting the number. Okay. That they are trustworthy and that they can be accountable to delivering the results that they have signed up for. That's typically, an earnings or a revenue number or a number of new customers. Like the sales leader has a number on their head, and they've got to be ultimately accountable and then ask for them to trust them that they will get there, and give them some flexibility on how we get there. So that's to say, Mr. CFO, you want to pay 150. I'm getting ready to write a check for 225 for this candidate, to say, if it doesn't work, it's on me. I'm willing to be ultimately accountable for that. And sometimes that means showing them that you are willing to spend the extra $75,000 on this rep and let someone else go, or to not do this one initiative that you had in the budget, but that you are going to still deliver on the economics. How we do it might change throughout the selling year when we have to be opportunistic. And you've seen this in sport where the salary cap. Players will take a pay cut to go get somebody else that they think can help them win. And that's what sales leaders have to model. They have to say, ultimately, we got to get to this number. And if it means I can't do some of these other things, we can do anything we want. We can't do everything we want. So if I want to go get Jeb Blount at 225, I got to let something else go. And they have to be willing to unhide the work behind that to pull the rest of the management team along.
Cool. All right. Rule number 4 for hiring that you've laid out 1, 2, 3. What's Crew de Gras?
So the first one, they don't work for your company. We missed it. They don't work for your company. Then they don't apply for jobs. They are the band, and they don't want your comp plan. They earn more money than you. Those are the 4 rules. They don't work at your company. So Sally, who's really great, who's worked here, she loves the mission. She's never been trained in sales. She's not going to be elite. So you can repurpose Sally from some other role to a sales job, but she's never been professionally trained. She's going to be average. So they don't work for your company, then they don't apply for jobs. They are the band, so treat them like the band, and then they deserve more money than you.
I love it. I love it. Nigel, your book is Hiring Elite Salespeople. It's when is it? You're releasing it chapter by chapter. When is the full book set to be released?
Set to be released, working with a publisher, end of the year, start of next year. So December of 24, January of 25.
Cool.
If you sign up, if you just go to my site now and join this Hire Elite Salespeople newsletter, you won't miss it because you'll get it chapter by chapter. And then I'll say, oh, by the way, here it is. Go get the book.
What's that website, Nigel?
NigelGreen.co.
NigelGreen.co. Go check out the newsletter. Get the book chapter by chapter. Again, as someone who reads a lot of sales books and a lot of sales content, Nigel has some of the best that's out there. I highly recommend it to any sales leader. Go check out NigelGreen.co. Sign up for the newsletter. Any final thoughts on hiring salespeople, elite salespeople?
If you don't, somebody else will, and you'll be short for your post as a sales leader.
I love it. Well, Nigel, thank you so much for being on the Sales Gravy podcast. These are some quick tips for you as a sales leader to hire elite salespeople. Again, if you haven't had a chance to check out Sales Gravy University, Nigel has some great courses on there, along with 45 different other providers from around the world, including Victor Antonio, Anthony Iannarino, Mike Weinberg, Jeb Blount Sr., Jeb Blount Jr., if you like me enough. And we have some great content there, both live and on-demand training, the most powerful sales training platform on the market. Learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com. Use code FREECOURSE. And if you're around in November in San Antonio, check out Outbound Conference. That will be happening with speakers like Anthony and Jeb. And we're going to bring in a lot of folks to the JW Marriott in San Antonio, Texas. That's November 6th through the 8th. If you have budget for travel and getting to a conference this year, this is the one to make it to. It's outboundconference.com. Nigel, thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate you joining the Sales Gravy podcast.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to click like and subscribe so you never miss a single video. And if you want more sales training content, go to learn.salesgravy.com.